What's up, Moto Buddy? Mike here from Taco Moto. Look at this thing. This is a Kove. It's a 450 rally bike. This is the FSE 450. So it's not the fancy rally one because it doesn't have the DLC coated lower fork legs. It doesn't have the carbon fiber tower. So it's the step beneath the like the true race rally bike. But this is the this is standard rally edition. I think it's a 23, and we have it here on loan from Bo over at Arizona Ready to Ride. He rents this. He or one of his clients raced this in the Baja 500, which now has a rally class. Score International, the Baja Racing Series, has a rally class. So if you have a bike, and there's some minimum standards, it has to have, I think, like a fixed tower and a certain number of gallons of gas, and you can look it up and see what those requirements are, but this bike clearly meets that. And Gary at Kove USA, the importer, I think worked really hard to get with Andrew Kirker to make that, to create that rally class. And it essentially was a boutique class created just for this bike. And more power to him. Look, here's something exciting. You've got a 7-gallon of fuel, single cylinder motorcycle that is a true, this is really like a dual sport. This is an adventure bike. It's a mini adventure bike, a light ADV bike. It has the types of things that you see in the larger displacement bikes. It's got a feature-rich controller here and then an LCD display. Let's show you this. So it's got all kinds of ride mode functions. This bike has ABS. It has the types of electronic features and capabilities that you get with larger displacement bikes. I don't quite know. I haven't played around with this yet, but you can select through the different modes and screens. This bike has 3,000 miles on it. It's not showing right now, but that's how many miles is on this. So impressive. It's got an impressive list of features. It has some bar damping system that work impressively well. It's pre-built for a stabilizer. It doesn't have the stabilizer on this one, but it's got the right attachment points for it. So there's some very thoughtful, cleverly laid out systems and parts on this thing. And the reason we have it is because we are putting a Dynojet tuner on it. We're going to do a power commander, and here it is. It's already been installed on the bike, and then tomorrow we're going to run it on the dyno and do a custom tune to this. So this bike has been upgraded with the Rally Titanium. This is the race exhaust system which has been thrown on this bike. So that's the next step up system that comes on that full race put on this bike. Bo must have ordered this. Gary must have got that to him, and it looks pretty trick. That's full titanium. And while we have it, I'm going through it to try to determine, how it's built, how it's put together, what are some of the potential weaknesses. One of the first things we usually look at on a bike is the fuel delivery system, because that's a very risk, a lot of vulnerabilities with that fuel delivery. So this tank here is that left wing. This is pulled off, and it has 3 attachment points. I'll show you on the other side how that looks. Let's do this really quick. So if you see the rear tank, the whole rear seat area, and under here, this is all fuel capacity. I don't know the sizes. I don't know the capacities of this. You'll have to look that up to see what they are. But this hose here, there is an adapter right underneath here, and that's a gravity feed. So fuel is being gravity fed through that tank, through this line here. Now notice a couple of things. Quick disconnect, these are CPC. You have these on KTMs. KTM will be black because the black is the pressure rated. There is no pressure here. This is just gravity feed only. So this is the lower capacity, lower pressure connectors. It's very likely that we will upgrade this to the brass version for durability. And we'll probably put a inline filter there. So that hose runs along here. There it is. This is a backflow check valve, and that's just a flap diaphragm. So there's some vulnerability with this backflow valve here. So that's a sign, or that's an item that could probably use a durability upgrade. But that backflow prevents this tank, when full, from then back feeding up into this tank here. It keeps that fuel from running back upstream. And then there is a connector here. It's a 2-part connector. So you've got this line goes into a metal T connector, and then there's an outlet, so an inlet and an outlet. So this tank is blending its own fuel as well as this fuel being blended in this tank. And then there's a connector hose that is right here. There you see that fitting on the bottom, and then this hose that's flexing into the frame, that comes over to the other side. And this is the connector point here for that hose. That then connects to this guy, and then that fuel gravity feeds in. There's a hole on the inside of this tank, and then it's presented here into this tank. And so ultimately all that fuel is working its way into the primary tank. Primary tank has a couple things going on with it. You have a fuel pump here, and I just dissected this fuel pump because I wanted to understand how they're doing it in this Kove. And so let's take a look at this situation. So you have a motor that is the same size as a KTM motor. So the 12 through 23 generation bikes use a motor very similar. This is a Yamaha style motor, and it very well may be in fact cross-referenced over to a Yamaha, and that's because they have a non-barbed top here. It's an O-ring, and so that pump fits into this chamber. The pump fits to the bottom, and I'll show you how that works. This sock filter, this filter is kind of like a trash filter. It just filters out any debris. And what you have to do here, I don't know if I can do this one hand, but you have to feed this piece of the sock. I'll just kind of demonstrate. This piece of the sock fits through this opening here, and then it just folds up on the side of the pump like this, and so does the other one too. So when it's installed into the tank, into this housing and then into the tank, the filter kind of looks like that, folded up. That fits down into there, and then you have a top cap. There's an O-ring. You saw this O-ring here, this brown one, and that fits into this little chamber cavity right there. So that slides over to the top. That's the cap of that filter. Then this housing comes down, latches it, locks it in like that. And there's a clever little design feature here. See these two little hooks? You've got one here and one on the opposite side. That fits into this groove right here that acts to secure the body of this. So that's a pretty elegant design. And then once that goes in there, now there's an O-ring here, that brown one, and that fits this outlet port. That's the pressurized fuel that goes out to the injector itself. And so this would click. You see these little click tabs here. So that goes there, and then up here with that blue O-ring, that's the pressure regulator. So whatever that outlet fuel pressure is, probably, I would guess it's probably similar to the KTM 49 to 51, somewhere in that range. This is the pressure regulator. And so like all simple spring-loaded, pre-calibrated spring pressure regulators, you have full pressure, probably about 100 PSI, is presented to this side, and then that spring rate bleeds off about 50, 51 PSI to get you that 49, whatever that is. And these holes are just the outlet. So that's the outlet discharge, and that's captured and collected in this little chamber here. The little mouth at the bottom is the discharge. And so that fits right. I'll do it like this. This guy fits on that side, and that would go down into that O-ring right there. And then you see how this is going to capture it like that. So once this is all assembled, and your wires, they're going to connect to these two little spade terminals down here on the bottom. Your electrical connector is there. This is the outlet that goes to the injector. So that's a very, very simple, very elegant little design. The question for like long-term durability is what is this material? It's probably ABS or some very fuel-safe material. And then will these latches and clasps stand the test of time submerged in fuel? It's anybody's guess. What's the service life of this pump? We know that the KTM pump motor, the OEM motor's got about a 250-hour recommended service life. So that's probably what you could expect here. I think we're gonna look at doing a Tacobout 3,000-hour pump. Explore the possibility of doing that. And then you have on this side, this is the outlet. So that's your pressurized line. you've got a pretty clever little quick disconnect. When you compress that jaw, you see that that opens up those latch arms there, and that's how that's secured in. You have an inline filter. So that trash screen right here, that's probably a 30 or a 40 micron filter, and that's just gonna get gravel and debris. And you can see that there is little bits of rock and dirt that have fallen into this tank, and this has done a good job filtering it out. And this black color here, that's not dirt from outside the tank, that's carbon from the brushes. That's why that's turning black. So this filter is not bad. It doesn't need to be replaced. At this miles, at 3,000 miles and the number of hours it's on this bike, that's not due for replacement quite yet, and that's why it's black. That is the CPC. That's what connects. Oh, that's the transfer. This right here, that barb fitting at the end, that's what goes here into that. So this all, that fuel under pressure, 49 through 50 PSI, goes up here. This is an inline filter. Whatever it's set on there is rubbed away, but that's probably a 10 to 20 micron filter. And that could easily be changed out to our Tacomoto 250 hour filter, or like a Wix. So that's this fuel line hose is the same size. That would fit right there. And then this is gonna run along, travel up, and then go to the injector, which is up top here. There's no way you're gonna see that. So that's a pretty straightforward fuel system. I'm impressed at the design of that. They've done it about as simply and as efficiently as you can. And there's no real downside to any of those materials and the components that are used. That's all decent, good stuff. There's nothing, cut rate about that. There's ways to improve it, but there always are on any bike. So at this point, I'm super happy with what I see here. This bike, I may have mentioned, we're taking this to Baja on a run, I think in about a week or two, and this is gonna spend 7 days down there with us. And Bo's been gracious enough to loan us this bike. We're gonna do some maintenance on it, do a power commander tune. So this bike will be on the dyno tomorrow here at the shop, at the taco shop. And we're gonna do a very specific custom tune for this. Bo was telling me that the bike has some flat spots in the power band and just some inconsistencies. He's not really happy with it. So we will definitely be able to clean that up. And this power commander for this bike, it controls ignition as well as fuel. And so we can make ignition changes as well to modify the personality of this bike. And we can do gear specific tuning as well as two maps, so we can change the personality profile. And I'd like to see if we can get a quick shift program going on with this bike. So there's quite a few things we have in store, I think, for the Kove. We're gonna dip our toe in the water a little bit and play with these some. So if you have any questions about this bike, we'll try to answer. Again, we are not all that experienced on Kove, but we're gonna go for it. And so if you have in-depth questions, I don't know that we'll be able to answer them, but we can help get you an answer. We can forward you your questions towards Gary, the importer, and he for sure can help you out. And if you want to rent this bike, get a hold of Bo at Arizona Ready to Ride. He's the man and does tours and has all kinds of cool things going on. So thanks for watching. Like, subscribe, go out, get some adventure.